All right, any questions? I want to mention again that we have a full-length motion picture coming after our program tonight, Alone, Yet Not Alone, that we highly recommend and would love for you to stay up and to join us in showing that film tonight. Well, I'm going to give you a hint about our next speaker. He is the host of the #1 rated weekend hit called Huckabee on the Fox News Channel. But coming now to introduce our mystery speaker is the founder of Vision America Action, whose purpose is to inform, to encourage, and mobilize pastors and their congregations to be proactive in restoring Judeo-Christian values to the moral and civic framework in their communities, states, and in our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Rick Scarborough.
Thank you. Well, I told E.W. Jackson he was going through the door, just our luck, another mealy-mouthed preacher. In fact, I said to Jim DeMint in the green room, I said, you know, it's just like God to set up 3 straight preachers and then a deacon to close it out. I've known Mike Huckabee since I was a seminarian. He had just graduated, though I'm a little bit older than he is. He did it in 3 years, I did it in 7. He was serving at that time with James Robinson, and because I had an evangelistic bent, there was a natural affinity between the two of us. I had the privilege over the course of a ministry of evangelism to be with him in a crusade in one of the 2 great churches that he pastored in Arkansas. And no one was more shocked when a wonderful pastor who had become the youngest president of the Southern Baptist Convention of Arkansas declared he was running for senator than I and all of our friends and mutual preacher buddies. But I watched Mike Huckabee perform in that candidacy. He came up short. But as you know, in 1992, when he challenged an incumbent Democrat for that office of Senate, there was also a presidential election. And the governor, Bill Clinton, was elected to presidency. God help us all. But that opened up the lieutenant governorship because the lieutenant governor was now the governor. Mike Huckabee ran for that office and was elected. He found out a lot about public office. When he went for his first day on the job, he found out that the Democrats had nailed the door to his office shut from the inside. All of the furniture had been removed. They spent up his budget. 59 days later, as the outcry in Arkansas grew, he finally had his first day not only on the job, but in the office. Most of you are aware that a short time after that, a couple of years later, under disgrace and threat of impeachment, the governor of the state was removed, and Mike Huckabee suddenly found himself the governor of the great state of Arkansas, where then he served with distinction for 12 years, garnering accolades, even by such conservative bastions as Time magazine, who called him one of the top 5 governors in America. As a result of the 10 years that he spent in that office and the gain of respect that came his way, it laid the foundation for a bid for the presidency. Everyone said, well, he can't do that. He can't be elected. In fact, everyone who supposedly knows all of those kind of things so well said it was a doomed candidacy from the start. But Mike Huckabee again proved everyone wrong with a strong grassroots effort that came up just short, but short unfortunately because many of those in the know and who held the purse string said, unelectable, not the right choice. Ladies and gentlemen, as a result of that, we've been on a downhill slide for the last 6 years. May we never again let the pundits tell us who our candidate is. I've often said, as the church goes, so goes America. Unfortunately, as the pastor goes, so goes the church. We're living in an era when a lot of pastors are compromising their message. But we just heard the thundering cry of righteousness flowing from a pastor's heart who's been called to public service. We're about to hear another man, equally gifted in pastoring, who was called to public service. May God continue to call out men of God who will stand up and be counted. May we stand up, speak up, and never give up again. give a warm, rousing welcome to my good friend, Governor Mike Huckabee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, first of all, I'm very mad at Tony Perkins. I just want to get that out. He put me on the program after Bishop Jackson. If I have ever been mistreated, it was tonight. I thought having my doornail shut was a very rude thing to do. I thought some of the ways in which the Democrats in the legislature in Arkansas treated me from time to time was brutal. But to ask me to come out here after Bishop Jackson, thank you for staying. That's the first thing I want to tell you. And it's been a tough day all day. I got in this afternoon. I lost my iPhone. And, you think about what's on your phone. Don't worry, I got it back. I called the NSA, and they told me exactly where it was. I'm so glad they were able to keep up with me. They even told me about all the emails that I missed. So I'm all caught up. I'm good. It is such a delight to be here. And I'm grateful for Family Research Council, for Tony Perkins, for his longtime friendship, for the extraordinary leadership that he's brought to our nation in elevating and keeping before the American public the fact that our country is not a country solely built on the issues of money. It must be a country that is also built unapologetically on the issue of the morality of this country and whether or not we are going to be a people who believe that there are godly principles to which we must adhere, or else we will fall as a nation. And the degree to which we are disintegrating today is largely a spiritual, not a political, challenge before us. Politics is merely the vehicle, but the end result and the very motivation from us has to be spiritual. We've gone through a past 2 weeks that have been kind of tough. Now, I, for one, believe that we missed a great opportunity as conservatives to put a real spotlight on the failures of Obamacare. We saw the government in a partial shutdown, and the only thing that is helping us right now is the heavy-handed, ham-fisted way in which the President of the United States has utterly mismanaged the government of the country, intentionally trying to punish people in ways that make no sense. And like you, I've been outraged to see 91-year-old World War II veterans standing behind a barrier that was constructed for the sole purpose of making a point and keeping the very people from the memorial that their own blood and bodies had built. And everything that it represented, they were shoved behind in the name of some political gamesmanship. And as I looked at all of the things that happened, whether it was the memorials being closed or park rangers trying to keep people from taking pictures of Old Faithful, and I'm not talking about Nancy Pelosi, I'm talking about the geyser, or whether it was trying to keep them from taking even a photo of Mount Rushmore, as if somehow taking the picture would remove some of the gloss of it all. From all of that, in a way, it was as if this administration was saying to Americans, you're on your own. When I think about what happened in Benghazi, it's been now over a year. And what's so tragic about that is that I think one day we're going to find out that there were illegal weapons being moved from Libya to Syria to arm the rebels. And terrorists captured them. And the real scandal has yet to come out. And if it in fact becomes true that what was really being covered up was an illegal weapon running operation, and now those weapons, some of which are pretty serious, are in the hands of terrorists who have absconded with them, then there will be some people who will still need to answer for the deaths of Chris Stevens, Tyrone Woods, Sean Smith, Glenn Daughtery, who were told that night, as they valiantly stood believing that their country would not leave them behind. They were told that night, you are on your own. Americans never tell people who have stood for their country. They've never told people who have fought for freedom that they were going to be left behind. But they were told that night they were on their own. When I think about the only friend, the only ally we have in all the Middle East, and all of North Africa for that matter, and that's Israel, the one true friend we have, the one country that mirrors our own country in terms of giving people freedom, the freedom to disagree with their government. And boy, if you know the Israelis, if you think we're tough on our government, you ain't seen nothing, folks. And our one partner in the Middle East, the one loyal, dependable ally we have, as they face annihilation from a very real existential threat from the Iranians. And what we have done is essentially to tell Israel, you are on your own, and they know it. And before God, this country will answer for its abandonment of the nation of Israel. And I hope that we are able to bring leadership back into this country that recognizes it is not just a political, it is a moral obligation to stand with Israel. And I pray that I live to see, and that Israel will see, America return as a loyal friend that can be counted upon, not as somebody who says, good luck, you're on your own. What have we said? What have we said to the Christians in Egypt and the Christians in Syria? I'll tell you what we've said. As we gave support to the murderous thugs of the Muslim Brotherhood and Mohammed Morsi, we basically said to those Christians in Egypt who were being slaughtered by these butchers, you're on your own. We couldn't decide whose side we were on. We claimed not to be on a side, but we were, and it was the wrong side. And when we've had an opportunity to stand with the Syrian Christians, we didn't, and we haven't. We've told them they're on their own. And when the working class people of this country have had their paychecks robbed by the increase of the payroll tax that started this year, even after the president promised that nobody's taxes will go up if they made less than $250,000 a year. And that was yet one more great big colossal lie, because the taxes of every working person who actually gets a paycheck did go up. And it's been felt hard by families across this country. And for all the talk about how this president wants to help the middle class, nobody's done more to kick this middle class in the groin than this administration, by making it harder and harder for them to earn a living. And when they reach up for the next rung on the ladder, they get kicked back down to the earth and told, you are on your own. And now we're seeing the effects of Obamacare. Think about this. $634 million to launch a website that is about like putting a 1973 Yugo at Talladega. Never has there been anything so completely a colossal failure as the launch of a software that we spent $634 million. And to put it in perspective, look, it took Facebook 6 years before they ever spent $600 million. And the big difference between Facebook and Obamacare's website is that Facebook works. The way that we have taxed working people and made it harder and harder for them to succeed is one more way in which the government is basically saying, we don't value your work. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but when the government says, we're going to take a significant portion of your wages and we're going to confiscate them for what we think we should spend them for. Think that through. Because the logic of that is the government saying, your work is less valuable than our needs for what you earned. What you did to get your money is of less value than what we're going to do with your money. And as I look around and see what government has done with a lot of our money, including the $634 million website, I'm once again reminded that Americans ought to be at a point of saying, enough. We've been told that we're on our own, and pretty much we are. When it comes to religious liberty in this country, think about the way in a short period of time, I've been to the Value Voters Summit almost every year that it's been occurring, and I don't think I've ever seen such a dramatic shift in 1 year's time. Think about what's happened to the institution of marriage. Not that the institution of marriage can be completely regulated out of the business by the government, but the fact is, for those of us who still believe that the biblical standard of marriage is the standard of marriage, because it's the only one that has lasted over the test of time, do you realize that for those of us for whom this is not a governmental issue and it's not a political issue, it is a moral issue, it is a biblical issue, it's a cultural issue, it's a sociological issue, it's a family issue, we've been pretty much told, you're on your own. Think about the photographer in New Mexico that is in trouble with the government because that photographer refused to take part in a same-sex wedding. Do you remember how we were told, don't be afraid of same-sex marriage because it's not going to affect people who don't believe in it? Tell that to the baker, the caterer in Washington State who was in trouble because the caterer said, look, I don't support same-sex marriage. I can't make a wedding cake with two men on the cake. And I just can't do it. It's a matter of conscience. Did we respect that person? Did we say, we understand, we are a tolerant, we are a diverse society, and your view is just diverse from the views of the people who wanted you to make a cake, so they can go somewhere else and have a cake made? No, that's not what we did. The government told them, you either make the cake or go out of business. They said, you're on your own. When I think about what's happened just this week in the world of protecting the lives of innocent, unborn children in California, they weren't having enough abortions, so Jerry Brown, the governor of California, this week signed a bill by the same legislature that passed a bill that said if 6-year-olds who are biologically boys think that they are really girls, that they should be able to go to the girls' restroom. And if they're 16 and they really maybe are biologically all male, but they identify as female, they should be able to go to the locker room with, shower with, and play on the sports team of the girls. And to those of us who believe that there is a difference between male and female, we would say, we have been told, you're on your own. And by the way, it is a good thing that that didn't come up when I was in high school, because I'm pretty sure that every boy in my high school would have suddenly felt like that he was just a little more comfortable showering with the girls, no matter how uncomfortable the girls might have been with it. Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard? Well, it would have been until this week. Governor Brown signed yet another bill. This bill says that there's not enough abortions in California, so now non-physicians can perform first trimester abortions. Nurses, physicians' assistants. It's passed, it's signed, it's the law of California. Where are the women in this country who ought to be saying, wait, women are worth more than to just have anybody do a serious surgical procedure in which a woman's body is invaded and a child is taken away? Have we not the decency to say, we don't need more abortions by more people doing it. We need fewer abortions with less people doing it so that we honor every single life from the moment it is conceived, because it is conceived as a precious gift from Almighty God. And I don't know about you, but when the IRS scandal first erupted, and we started learning that the IRS really is a criminal enterprise, we've always disliked it. In fact, we've loathed it, hated it. It's the only organization in the government where you are guilty until you prove that you're innocent. In every other realm of our criminal justice system and every other realm of our civil government, we are innocent as citizens. Our freedom is protected until somebody proves that we don't deserve that freedom, because they prove beyond a reasonable doubt that we have violated that freedom by breaking a law that would take the freedom away. The one exception has been the IRS. The one exception has been where the IRS says, you're guilty. You bring me a shoebox full of receipts and prove that you're not. And so then when we found out that they really were operating a criminal enterprise where they were goose-stepping over our necks and backs and targeting organizations that were conservative or Christian or pro-Israel, the government's response, the rhetoric was great. The president said, we'll get to the bottom of this. Folks, he hadn't got to the top of it yet, much less the bottom of it. And in the meantime, what we're basically told, with no FBI investigation going on, you are on your own. It's time to shut down the criminal enterprise called the IRS. It's time to put them out of business. No longer should they dictate to the preachers and to the pulpits of this land what they can and cannot say. It is not the business of the IRS to tell any pastor, any preacher, any priest what he believes God Almighty sent him into that pulpit to say. That is not the job of government. That's the job of God. By the way, there's one big difference between the IRS and the mafia, because I know I've called them a criminal enterprise. At least the mafia has enough honor. They don't whack the women and the children, and the IRS, they do. So there's a big difference between the two. I want you to think about what's happened in Obamacare, because in every other realm of our life, this administration has essentially said, you're on your own. But when it comes to our decisions about our own health and health care and our doctors and what we want to be covered for and what we don't, in this regard, the president has said, we got you covered. We'll take care of you. But he's not taking care of us. Do you really want to give your personal medical information as well as your financial information to the IRS? Do you trust them? So you know what I think it's time for us to do? It's time for us to tell them what they have been telling us. You are on your own. Good luck. Good luck trying to get that information out of us. I don't understand the whole idea that we're living in a time where the government thinks that an 11-year-old girl is perfectly adult enough to make all the decisions that she needs to and wants to about obtaining birth control, but somehow, even though she's adult enough in 11 to make that decision, she's still child enough when she's 26 to need to be on her parents' health insurance. Now, can somebody explain that to me? These are perilous times, but they're not hopeless times. And I never want people to think, there's no hope. Of course there is. For me, my hope is not in the next election, certainly not in the Republican Party, it's absolutely not in the Democratic Party. But I do have hope. My hope is that if there's a remnant of people, it doesn't have to be a huge majority, it can be a small minority, but if there's a remnant, God has always worked through a remnant. And if there's a remnant of people who still have that seed of liberty within them. For 3,000 years, the date palm tree flourished in Israel, and it fed the masses. And when the Romans came, they wiped out the date palm tree. And so for 2,000 years, it virtually disappeared. Archaeologists dug up a jar of date palm seeds. They had been buried for maybe 1,500 years or 2,000 years. They don't even know exactly how long. The archaeologists dug them up. They put them in a drawer where they sat for 40 years, in a jar. And then an Israeli professor decided, I wonder what would happen if we planted one of those seeds. And he did. And after all those years, that date palm seed flourished and flowered and has grown. Because the life inside that seed was more powerful than all the time that had pressed against it. So when people tell you there's no hope, I want to remind you, if God can take the seed of something as insignificant as a date palm and bring it back to life after 2,000 years of sitting idle and dormant, then we serve a holy God who can take the seeds of liberty left within us, if we're willing to go to the point where we will die if necessary, so that life and liberty can once again come forth. And we will be able to say, we are not on our own, because He is with us always, unto the end of the world. God bless you. Thank you very much.